Welcome to the November 18th, 2021 Farmington Hills Planning Commission regular meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order. All commissioners are present except Commissioner Manti. There's an agenda in front of us. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move we accept the agenda as published.
Second. If I may, we have to amend the agenda to actually modify one item here. It would be site plan 6410 2021, item C on the agenda. It's actually both a application for a PUD amendment as well as a site plan, so both concurrently. The action tonight would actually be to set public hearing, not to approve the site plan. Would ask that you make that change.
Mr. Chair, I would like to amend the agenda as our planner suggested.
Still second. Okay. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. We are on to item 4A, revised site plan 62-5-2019. The location is the northwest corner of 12 Mile and Middle Belt Roads. The proposal is an assisted living in an RC2 multiple family district. The action requested is approval of the site and landscape plans. And the applicant is Harbor Retirement Development, LLC. Can we hear from Giffords Webster, please?
Yes, you may. Thank you. All right, so this is the former Genopolis site, as I think a lot of people are familiar with it. It's a little over 4 acres, zoned RC2. Some of you who were on the commission at the time may recall that it was rezoned to RC2. There used to be mixed zoning here. And this proposal has essentially been in front of you before. It was a little bit different at the time, but there was an approved site plan for a very, very similar project on this site a few years ago. Our letter notes variances. They actually did go to the ZBA previously as well. So when we look around this site, to the north we have RA1 zoning. There's single family homes on that. There's also one RA1 lot that is south of the street to the north, and that one is vacant. To the south is B1 zoning with a gas station and strip mall. To the east we have a mix of RA1, B1, and OS1, and there's some single-family homes, an office, and a gas station over there. And then to the west is RC2, which is a multifamily complex. The site right now has driveways on both 12 Mile and Middle Belt. So they're proposing a 100-bed assisted living facility. That's 68 assisted living beds and 32 memory care beds. Property was rezoned to RC2 in January 2019. So assisted living facilities are principal permitted use in that district, subject to some standards in section 417. That plan that was approved back in 2019 that I mentioned before was for 90-bed facilities. So there are 10 additional beds and a little bit of extra height in a small portion of the building now. When we look at the dimensional standards, we do require setbacks to be measured from the future right-of-way rather than the existing right-of-way. So setbacks on the plan here are measured from the existing right-of-way. So we've got a couple of setbacks that are going to need to be addressed. So section 3.5G requires that all main buildings shall have a setback of at least 50 feet from any street and shall have a setback of at least 20 feet from any other property line. So the main building here is setback 48.6 feet at its closest point from the future right-of-way line for Middle Belt Road, and 40.8 feet from the 12 Mile future right-of-way line. So a 1.4 foot variance would be required from Middle Belt, and an 8.2 foot variance would be required from 12 Mile. And that's the same exact variances apply if 12 Mile Road is taken to be the front yard. There's a reason that comment is in there, which I'll get to in a second. They have also provided a 10-foot setback for the parking, but that is also measured from the existing right-of-way rather than the planned right-of-way as required. So there would be a 9.5 foot variance for that setback as well. Another note in this table is that information has not been provided on rooftop equipment. They have a pitched roof, and I think it's likely that they're planning to screen anything that might go on the rooftop with the actual pitched roof. You put it kind of inside where you've got your courtyard, but we'll let them speak to that. The dumpster enclosure that they're showing, these are standards. They've not addressed mechanical equipment on the plan, but we do have some screening requirements for that, per that section reference. We look at fences. They are showing a couple of existing fences.
Can you adjust your microphone a little bit? You're cutting in and out, and some of the commissioners can't hear you.
Okay. Am I a little
Yeah.
smoother now? Okay, thanks.
Hopefully that's better.
So they've got a couple of existing fences that they're proposing to keep, and then they are proposing a couple of new fences. One of those surrounds the outdoor dining patio. That fence is compliant. They do have a 6-foot cedar fence that's for screening purposes on the north side of the property near Orion Court. Part of that fence is within the required setback from Orion Court, and a variance would be required to permit that. They are meeting the minimum parking requirement, actually exceeding it by a fair amount. When we look at the location of parking, parking is permitted in a minimum front yard in this district.
Try moving away from your microphone.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounded really weird.
Your phone is not.
Joe, can you maybe swap and see if that one's better?
Thank you.
Because if I'm far away from that one, you can't hear me, and if I'm too close to it, it sounds really odd. So this one sounds better.
That's much better.
Yeah. Thank you for bearing with me. Essentially, what we've got is we've got a standard in the district where parking's not permitted in a minimum front yard. So if Middle Belt Road is taken to be the front yard here, we do have applicants at the time of development assign a front yard. Then obviously they've got parking in the front yard, which is not permitted. So they should be assigning 12 Mile Road as the front yard, and then they have parking in an exterior side yard in that case. And as I noted earlier, the 10-foot parking setback's not met on Middle Belt Road when you measure it from the future right-of-way. The parking standards, the parking design standards are met for the parking lot. We have some specific standards for assisted living facilities in section 417. They are meeting that standard. And then in 3.7, we have some additional standards that apply to the RC2 district. Those standards also have been met. Some of it will be subject to engineering review. Corner clearance is compliant. We generally like to see that indicated on the plan, however. When we look at landscape development for the overall site, they do have a full evergreen screen proposed along the entire property line facing residential zoning. There's Norway spruce along Orion, and then the arborvitae along that undeveloped RA1 lot.
Yeah, Joe, I think you need to be closer to it again. You're breaking up again. Either that or we're having problems with a bunch of mics.
So that vacant RA1 district lot is a developable lot. And we do have a requirement that when an RC district abuts an RA district, a minimum 20-foot buffer yard is required. So there's a portion of that that's only 15 and a half feet. So that's another variance that we'd be looking at, a 4.5 foot variance for that portion of the buffer yard where the required depth is not met. Looking at the other landscaping standards, we've got large evergreens in that northern buffer and smaller evergreens to the northwest. We do have a standard that requires a mix of different tree types. So they're only providing evergreen there with no deciduous. And then when we look at tree replacement, I did have a chance to talk to the gentleman who produced the tree replacement plan, and we clarified how he did his calculations. It turns out he was actually considering landmark trees separately from our other regulated trees. He just wound up with a different number than we did, and the way the calculation was expressed in the sheet created some confusion. So obviously the numbers that we came up with and the numbers that they came up with are going to have to be reconciled. When we look at lighting, we have an average to minimum ratio as we see on the metric plan. There's illumination levels that aren't shown on various paved parts of the lot, particularly on northern surface drive. And then illumination levels for hardscape areas. Like I said, they're not all labeled, so we couldn't quite tell if that standard was being met. And then the building entrance standard was unclear for the plan as well. Otherwise, we have a couple of notes for the lighting plan, but nothing major. So I guess to sum up the variances I brought up as I went through the review, we have one from the setback from Middle Belt Road and one from the setback for 12 Mill Road. We have the buffer yard width over by the RA1 lot. We have the parking setback along Middle Belt Road, and then we have the location of that screening fence along Orion Court, which is in the required setback. So they will need to go to the ZBA for a few things with this plan if you were to grant approval this evening, and I would say that approval would be conditioned on those variances, as well as some of the other things that are in our letter.
Okay, could we hear from the applicant, please? And if you could give your name and street for the record, please.
Is this on? Hi, Charlie Jennings, 775 Starboard Drive, Vero Beach, Florida. And I am the applicant. So the application we submit to you or resubmitted to you was very consistent with what was originally presented in 2019 due to some economic headwinds that the senior housing industry faced over the past really 18 months, almost 2 years now. We forced us to go back and reevaluate the project. Obviously, the pro forma, the financial implications of that, and the continuing implications of construction prices and all the supply chain disruptions that you all have been hearing, I'm sure, of. We went back, reevaluated the project. Unfortunately, the feasibility had been thrown off because of the increased construction cost. So we went back, reevaluated it, realized that if we added about 10 additional assisted living apartments, it would bring enough revenue in to offset or potentially offset a significant portion of the cost. So we went to work with our engineers and architects to see if there was a way that we could do that had the minimal disruption on the plan that was originally presented, the one that we had talked through with the neighbors. And I feel pretty good about what we were able to come away with. You may recall, for those of you who were here then, that the single-story memory care portion, we were able to add the 10 additional apartments over the top of that. So it essentially kept the building footprint the same. It kept the site plan the same. It kept the landscape plan the same. Of course, all the setbacks that we went through ZBA, we'll have to go back through those, but none of those were negatively impacted. So it really is a very minor change to what was previously presented and approved.
Any questions for the proponent? Commissioner Orr?
You said that the footprint's the same,
Yes,
and yet you're adding more units?
yes.
And how'd you do that?
We did that over the top of what was previously the single-story portion of the building. So we're adding them on top of that single story.
So your footprint and everything else, all of this is exactly the same. It's just a difference in the building itself. So you're not going to ask for additional variances?
No, just the variances that we were approved of, we would have to renew those, obviously, because they've expired.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brickner?
You said you already got the variances.
We went through ZBA in 2019 after receiving Planning Commission approval. We received the variances. Those have now expired. So we will, after this Planning Commission, we will have to go back and renew those.
Oh, thank
But
you.
they would be essentially the same that we requested the previous time.
Any other questions? Motions? Okay, Commissioner Orr?
Thank you. I move that PUD Plan 5 of 1993. Am I reading the right one?
No.
No.
Okay, good. There you go.
That applicant was
There it is, I got it.
on.
I move the revised site plan 62-5 of 2019 dated October 18, 2021, submitted by Harbor Retirement Development LLC, be approved because it appears to meet the applicable requirements of the zoning chapter, subject to the following conditions. I need Giffords' letter here. Subject to the conditions of Giffords Webster's letter dated November 10th. There were a number of deficiencies that need to be rectified. And I think that we ought to stipulate in the motion that your address should be on 12 Mile. And you will need variances for the front setback on Middle Belt, 12 Mile Road setback, buffer yard width, parking setback, and location of a screening on Orient Court.
Support. Okay, support by Commissioner Trefla. Commissioner Connigan?
Chair, if we reference the consultant's letter, is it necessary for us then to cite the setbacks, or are we referencing the letter? The point is, if we're missing something when we delineate it versus what's in the review, is it necessary that we, I guess that's a question for the attorney, whether if we reference the review letter, do we have to also then, in the motion, delineate the setback?
I guess through the chair, you don't have to do that, Member Connigan, but I don't see how it hurts just to identify for the applicant that you're particularly gonna need the 5 variances.
Thank you.
If I may, through the chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Orr.
Also, there are a couple items in there that could be resolved administratively that don't need to be put on the motion.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Congratulations. Okay, we are on to item 4B, Site Plan 65-10-2021, PUD 5, 1993. The location is the south side of 12 Mile, west of Drake Road. The proposal is a retail and restaurant office in an OS4 office research district, and the action requested is to set for public hearing. And the applicant is Michael Lawrence. And can we hear from Giffords Webster, please?
Sure. We did do a review of the site plan that was submitted here, but given that, we're dealing with something that in our opinion, constitutes a major amendment to the PUD agreement. I'm going to focus only on the PUD amendment portion of this letter for now, and then we can, if you have questions about anything else, obviously you can ask. But so what they're proposing to do is amend the PUD to permit retail and restaurant uses. Now, retail and restaurant uses are not currently permitted in the PUD per the agreement, and they're not permitted in the underlying zoning either. So our ordinance says that proposed amendments or changes to an approved PUD shall be submitted to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission shall determine whether the proposed modification is of such minor nature as not to violate the area and density requirements or to affect the overall character of the plan, in which case you can approve it. But if you determine that the proposed amendment is material in nature, the amendment is to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and City Council in accordance with our final approval of planned unit development procedure. So as you consider whether this amendment constitutes a major or minor amendment to the PUD, the main consideration is that the proposed uses aren't permitted in the underlying district, and that deviations from underlying zoning are generally covered by the PUD agreement, which is an agreement between council and the applicant. So if you make a determination that this is a major amendment to the PUD, action on the site plan would then be postponed until the amendment to the PUD is fully approved by council and the agreement has been updated accordingly, and that a public hearing would need to be set on the PUD amendment for your next meeting, so that you could then make that recommendation to council. One of the requirements of final PUD approval is a use plan showing where certain uses corresponding to different zoning districts are planned within the PUD. The submitted plan shows only the one site for these retail uses, so it could be extrapolated from that this is the one area of the PUD where those uses are contemplated. If the applicant does wish to identify other areas within the PUD for those uses, an overall use plan should be produced showing those areas. And then the applicant might also want to consider whether any personal service uses such as a barber shop would be appropriate for the context of the development. Those are generally listed separate from retail in our ordinance. So I think that if they were to add retail and restaurant uses to the PUD, that's what they'd be adding, and personal services might not necessarily be included in that. So they might want to consider whether or not those types of uses should be included. I don't know if you have any questions for me on that.
Okay, any commissioners for Mr. Tangieri? Commissioner Brickner?
Didn't we see this once before? It looks about the same as something we saw a couple of years ago.
We had a study session several years ago where the concept was discussed. At the time, no action was taken to amend the PUD, but yes, you have essentially seen this before.
But this was, I mean, to me, this seems like something that, I mean, it looks identical to what we saw before. I don't know if it's the same uses, but it looks pretty much like the same layout in the same location.
It is the exact same location, yes.
So, but you're saying that wasn't approved at the time?
We just saw it in
yeah.
the study session.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. At the time, it was discussed conceptually, but never an application was never brought forward.
To me, this doesn't seem like a major change, but what you distinguish between a major change and a minor change?
Well, in this case, you can't approve the site plan because it includes uses that aren't permitted in the PUD or the underlying zoning.
That's a major change.
Yeah, exactly. Without amending the PUD, you can't permit the uses or approve the site plan.
You're right.
Okay,
Steve?
yeah, if the applicant,
Steve has his hand up.
Commissioner Schwartz, I don't know, Steve, if you can move, I can't see you
I'm here.
normally.
I'm here.
Okay,
Not affecting any of you.
Yep.
So what struck me is that uses, if they're built, are not going to be seen from 12 Mile. They're certainly not going to be seen from Drake or Halsted.
Mr. Schwartz, if you're not talking into a mic, this is not going to
Right,
get
so
on the,
You can hear me, you don't have to see.
we can hear you, but
Okay,
it
you don't
needs
need
to
to
be
see.
recorded.
So it struck me looking at this plan that these retail uses are probably not going to be visible from 12 Mile, and they certainly won't be visible from Drake or Halsted. So are they going to be primarily supporting the offices that will be nearby? So in other words, it would seem to me it might be feasible for a sandwich shop to go in there and make it, but not a barber shop, for example. Anyone that would need a lot of visibility probably won't get it. So if the applicants speak to that, but it seems to me it's kind of a natural limitation of what could go in there and make it.
Could we hear from the applicant? If you could give your name and address for the record, please.
I will, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tony Anton. I'm with the Cajoyan Companies, 39400 Woodward Avenue, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. First of all, thanks for having me. There's only a few people in this room who were here from the beginning of this PUD. Dale for sure, Ed for sure, and maybe Barry. I'm not sure if you were there from the beginning, but we essentially inherited the NBD PUD. It's a 134 acre parcel that we started developing over 20 years ago, with the first building being Motorola. And I can't believe I'm this old, but I was here from the beginning as well. And we are essentially now down to one remaining developable piece for office. And we have this very unique 2.5 acre piece that is surrounded by concrete and water that really lends itself to being more of an amenity to the park, which is what we're aiming to do here. I would respectfully disagree with the connotation that this is a major amendment. In the PUD, which we've never amended before, in paragraph 3, it talks about accessory buildings and uses determined by the planning division of the city to be customarily incidental to any principal use permitted, or any such accessory uses as may be approved by the planning commission. So from our standpoint, 2.5 acres of 134 is a very minor deviation from this PUD. We believe that the planning commission has the authority to do this as accessory uses, and they are meant to be amenities to the office, which is exactly what we're trying to do right now. Mr. Brickman's correct. Several years ago, we came forward in a study session, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but the general consensus was this is pretty minor, given the size. And really, the tweaks that we had was the planning commission didn't want to see one building; they wanted to see it broken up and have some seating in between, and we've accommodated that. From a visibility standpoint, while the intention is to be largely, within our 134 acre development, we intend to have a monument sign out on 12 Mile to give that visibility for such folks who needed, visibility on the street as well, because it is a little bit of a challenging site given how it's configured. So I was very surprised to come tonight. We were told apparently just 15 minutes before we got here that we weren't going to be heard as a site plan, but only as a PUD, and we're ready. I have my architects and my engineers paid, and I brought them here. Doesn't seem fair to punt us until next month. So if the planning commission believes, as we do, that this is minor, we would like to go to site plan tonight and review this to move this along. We have some really exciting things that we're working with on our large 25 acre vacant piece, a potential headquarter user that we're really, really excited about. We want to show progress to them because we've made a short list. I've been in conversation with Ed and with Joe Valentine about this. It's really getting legs, and I want to show progress to them that we're doing what they want in the site, which is bring amenities. So all that said, I'm happy to answer any questions about the PUD and also about the site plan, hopefully, if you'll consider that tonight.
Yep. Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, just through the chair. And I was actually here in 1993 too.
Nice. That's right, Tom.
The reference to accessory uses accessory to some principal use. This is the principal use, and it's not permitted under the PUD right now. So that's the reason for it being a major amendment. You might consider it to be a minor amendment in the philosophical sense, and that's the planning commission's, recommendation to council. But as far as the PUD ordinance is concerned, this is about as major as it gets, adding a use that's not otherwise permitted. It's not an accessory use. As far as the zoning is concerned, it's a proposed new principal use that isn't in the PUD document. Maybe accessory in the broad, non-legal sense to the park, but not for the PUD. Which is why we amended the agenda and made that clear.
Okay. Other questions? Oh, Commissioner Brickner?
This is for our legal counsel. Can we, as we've been doing lately with the variance situations, can we approve the site plan subject to?
Through the chair, I don't think it works for a PUD because we got to amend the document and then do the plan. So I don't think it works in the same way.
We gotta fix this too. Tree replacement.
When it comes back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is,
Okay.
Have you read the letters from Joe's firm?
Of course. We were ready to address all the site plan issues.
Because it shows a discrepancy in the landmark trees and the way it was figured, so.
Yeah, we are prepared to address all those, sir.
Okay. Any motions? Other questions? Commissioner Turner?
Is this a drive-through restaurant or a sit-down restaurant?
We don't have any users who are ready to go yet. As you can imagine, they're not going to sign up until they know they're able to come. So this is meant to be a project that we can get approved and go get the users for. We have interest from folks, but they basically said, get your approvals and we'd like to come.
I have a question for attorney. How could we approve this and we don't know what type of restaurant it's going to be?
Doesn't matter.
So through the chair, you often don't know who the end user is. You approve uses, not individual users. If that's, and Mr. Chair, just to clarify my answer to Member Brickner, when this comes back, the applicant can ask that the amendment to the PUD and the site plan sort of be considered at the same time.
Right.
Because I wanted to make sure that, we were talking about doing something tonight before we even have the public hearing. And so, but yeah, when it comes back, you can try and consolidate some stuff. You've done that before.
So you're saying as part of the public hearing, we can hear the
Talk about the
PUD
plan.
and site plan?
If
Right.
that's your choice.
Okay.
we have done concurrent approval of PUDs and site plans before, yeah.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, real quickly, let's, Commissioner Schwartz.
I have a motion, but
Oh,
let me ask a
well,
question.
go ahead then.
Go ahead, Dale.
So I have a question of staff. So could somebody explain to me the kind of the process when this site plan was it submitted as a site plan?
No.
No, in this case, it was submitted, I have applications for both an amendment to the PUD as well as the site plan, so.
So concurrently, it was submitted as amendments to the PUD and site plan?
Yes, as a concurrent strategy.
So they were aware that a change to the PUD plan had to occur as part of this?
I assume so, based on the fact that they submitted the application for that, yes.
Okay.
So again, we thought we were going through both at the same time. I think the error that's not being mentioned is nobody said it for a public hearing, is what it sounds like to me. And so, I mean, that's,
Still got to have one.
that mistakes happen. What's that?
Still got to have one.
Yeah, we still
understand
have
you.
to have the.
I get it, Tom. But it's not fair to me that I've paid all my consultants, right? So it is what it is. But I guess, I'd like to, are we allowed to have a conversation? Are you basically saying that we are it's a for sure major issue to the PUD? Okay, so there was really no reason for us to come tonight.
Well, Mr. Chair, or Steve.
Commissioner Schwartz?
So it is what it is. And I'm going to make a motion, and you should not interpret the motion that I don't speak for the rest of the commission. I don't think anyone's has major heartburn over the idea of this, but we got to follow our counsel. So I move that inasmuch as this is a major amendment to the PUD, that action on the site plan shall be postponed until the amendment to the PUD is fully approved by the city council and the PUD agreement's been updated accordingly.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
I guess just,
Got the concurrent.
Yeah.
I think it'd be enough to just set this entire matter for a public hearing. And at that public hearing, at the next meeting, we'll bring both the PUD plan amendment and the site plan concurrently.
So
So your motion would, Member Schwartz, would just be set this for public hearing at the next
okay,
available.
but my understanding is council has to approve amending this before we do anything?
You have done that concurrently where council, and this is through the chair, where council has looked at the amendment to the plan and the site plan, and then the amendment to the PUD contract, essentially, initially at the same meeting.
So our public hearing would be after council votes?
Public hearing will be your next public hearing, next available public hearing.
I don't understand how we can vote on a public hearing when you're telling us this is a major amendment that council, our higher
You're
level has
setting
to.
through the chair.
Right.
You're setting the amendment for the public hearing. That's what you're having the hearing on.
Yep.
Is this change.
All right. Mr. Chair, I would remove my prior motion, and I move we set a public hearing for our next meeting on the potential PUD amendment.
Second.
Okay, second by Commissioner Connigan. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll see you
Mr.
at our
Chairman,
next.
may I ask one more question of Tom?
Yeah.
Just because, would you like us to bring a proposed amendment to the PUD? No, would you like us to propose an actual red line or a draft amendment
Document?
to the doc? You're not necessary yet.
Oh, we're good.
Okay, I want to make sure.
Yep.
All right, thank you all.
Great, thank you. Okay, on to item 4C, Site Plan 6410-2021. The location is the west side of Middle Belt, south of Linden Avenue. The proposal is to utilize the duplex option to build one 2-unit duplex on the site in an RA3, one-family residential district. The action requested is to set for public hearing, and the applicant is Ramiz Naman. Can we hear from Giffords Webster, please?
Sure. Right, so what they're proposing here is a duplex, and that is permitted in the RA3 district under section 318 3C, which I'll get to specifics on that in a minute. So they've got a 0.37 acre site. It's currently not developed. There's single family around them to the north and to the west. And then they've got kind of a row of duplexes to the south and then multifamily across Middle Belt to the east. We look at the dimensional standards of the district, and they are meeting those standards, including the minimum lot size, which is one of the specific standards for a duplex. The other standards, as you can see, there's no green and bold in the letters, so they are meeting, generally meeting the standards of the underlying district. And I just wanted to address the duplex standards specifically. So duplex standards under the major road frontage option is, it's like two subsections of section 318. So 318.3C and 318.4. Two-family dwellings may be permitted on lots which conform to the lot area and requirements of the district, as we've established this lot does, after a public hearing and review by the Planning Commission. So basically, your special land use standards apply here. If you're making a finding that the use is not injurious to the district and environs, it's not contrary to the spirit and purpose of the chapter, it's not incompatible with already existing uses in the area, and wouldn't interfere with orderly development of the area, and would not be detrimental to the safety or convenience of vehicular or pedestrian traffic. The objective of site plan review, as outlined in the ordinance, is to discourage use of two-family dwellings along major thoroughfares. So to accomplish this end, the planning commission may require variety in dwelling unit orientation or access.
You're really breaking up again.
I mean, I'll try different distances from the microphone.
Move it a little closer to you. Just move the whole one thing close, and even if you feel like you're eating it, it's okay.
I mean, if I get really close, I feel like the breakup gets worse. It's like,
Worse.
Yeah, it makes it worse.
So if I'm more like here, is that better? That seems better.
It does, if you move it a little bit.
Okay, so I'll try to stay like right. I'm just gonna not move my head at all. So, planning commission may require variety in dwelling unit orientation or access as they relate to existing and potential future uses of adjoining property and to the major thoroughfare. Site plans which require backing vehicles onto the major thoroughfare shall be permitted only if there's no alternative. They have a turning shown on this plan, so backing out should not be necessary. There are duplexes immediately to the south. It's designed in a different architectural style than this right to the south. This right to the south has a similar layout, but there is kind of a variety of layouts to the south. The way the ones to the south are designed is all on one big parcel, which is governed by an association. And you've got driveways that serve 2 units, but they don't serve 2 units in the same building. They serve 2 units in adjacent buildings. And then this one is served by one driveway to the same building, both units of that building. The corner lot standard doesn't apply, obviously, not on a corner lot. You are setting a public hearing this evening on this. They're meeting their setbacks. Again, the corner lot standards don't apply, and then all dwelling units should meet the minimum height and floor area requirements of section 34.3.1, and that standard is met by these units. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Joe? Commissioner Brickner?
This is rather simple. No matter what we do, it has to be scheduled for a public hearing, whether we think it's the greatest thing or it sucks. It's scheduled for a public hearing, and that's all we have to do. Just saying that the sheet that I got doesn't state that, so, but I'd be willing to make a motion if somebody else has questions.
Let's hear from the applicant real quick, if the applicant's got anything to say.
Good evening. My name is Ramaz Nauman. I'm from Nauman Construction, and we're proposing the duplex, and I live in Farmington Hills on Hampstead Boulevard.
Okay. Any questions for the proponent? No? Okay. Commissioner Brickner?
I move that the site plan for
6410.
6410-2021 be scheduled for public hearing
Second.
at the next meeting.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Turner. Discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll see you at the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on to item 4D, PUD Plan 4/2021. The location is the south side of Northwestern Highway between Greening Street and Highview Avenue. The proposal is a 4-story, 250-unit apartment building and a 3-story, 66-unit walk-up multiple family building in a B3 general business and an RA4, 1 family residential, OS1 office service, and a P1 vehicular parking zoning district. And the action requested tonight is to set for a public hearing, and the applicant is Farmington Hills Lofts LLC, Matt Schiffman. Can we hear from Giffords Webster, please?
Yes, thanks. So,
Just, Joe, with all the audio issues, let's do a quick overview.
yeah, I'm just gonna summarize a couple of things. So, at your meeting on June 17th, 2021, you did grant preliminary PUD qualification to the proposal, citing its adherence to the qualification criteria and objectives 4, 5, and 7 of item E below, which I will read. So item 4 is to provide alternative uses for parcels which can provide transition buffers to residential areas. Item 5 is to guarantee the provision of a public improvement which could not otherwise be required that would further the public health, safety, or welfare, protect existing or future uses from the impact of a proposed use, or alleviate an existing or potential problem relating to public facilities. And then the other standard that you cited in your qualification was to foster the aesthetic appearance of the city through quality building design and site development, the provision of trees and landscaping beyond minimum requirements, preservation of unique and/or historic sites or structures, and the provision of open space or other desirable features of a site beyond minimum requirements. So when you do consider this next month at the public hearing, you'll want to keep those standards in mind and whether or not you feel like the plan that they're putting forward still meets those objectives. Looking at some other things, they are proposing significantly more density than is permitted in any of the 3 RC multifamily districts. It's more than twice the permitted density of the RC3 district. So they should be prepared to discuss the rationale behind their proposed density with the Planning Commission. That was a point of debate among Planning Commission members during the preliminary qualification. Looking at the next standard, given that large number of units, we have, and I know engineering has also mentioned this, we have suggested a traffic study to compare likely traffic volume from this development to potential development on the site as zoned. It would utilize side street access points. It should be noted that those connections actually do provide egress to both Orchard Lake and Northwestern Highway. We do feel that they've submitted a complete package for your final determination on PUD. Quick notes on the conceptual PUD plan and use. We have a different, we've reached a different room count than the applicant. They are stating 503 and we have 819. It's a difference in the way they counted the rooms from the way our ordinance counts the rooms. They counted just the bedrooms, but our ordinance has it kind of bedrooms plus 1 standard for determining the number of rooms in a unit. So a 1-bedroom unit, for instance, counts as 2 rooms for density purposes. So they're showing a different number than what the ordinance shows. I did want to point that out. When we look at the exceptions to the zoning standards that they're asking for, so they're proposing this over multiple underlying zoning districts, as you noted earlier, with differing standards. So in order to be constructed, the PUD agreement has to grant the following exceptions from the typical standards of the ordinance. So multifamily housing is not permitted in the underlying districts, so the use would be something that would be cited in the PUD agreement. The density, clearly that's not in line with any of our districts that could be underlying, so that would be part of the PUD agreement. The height, 52-foot height of the northern building exceeds the height limit of all the underlying districts, closest to the underlying B3, which is 50 feet. We look at the street side setbacks, the underlying non-RA districts, the required street side setback is 25 feet. They're proposing less than that. We look at the rear setback, the underlying RA4 district, that would be 35 feet, proposing 25. And then they have 533 parking spaces in lieu of the 645 parking spaces that would be required under the standards of the zoning ordinance. So those are the exceptions to the zoning standards that we've been able to identify from their materials that they submitted. If you have any other questions about our letter, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for Giffords Webster? No? Does the proponent wish to come up and can we hear from the proponent? Yeah.
Yeah, I can switch you over.
Good for you for being able to remember that.
Good evening, everybody. My name is John Ackerman with Atwell Group, 2 Town Square, Southfield, Michigan, 48076. With us this evening is Jennifer Fritz with Humphreys and Associates. They're the architect on the project. We also have members of the development group in the audience, as well as a majority of the Langen family is here this evening as well, and I believe the Langen family would like to say a word or two as well. Thank you for taking your time to hear our presentation. I know Giffords did a good job of summarizing everything. I wanted to touch on a few things as far as the site goes, talk about the location, talk about the site itself, talk about the layout, and then Jennifer will take over and handle kind of some of the particulars of the buildings themselves, and then we'd be ready for any questions and answers after that. So the site is on the south side of Northwestern Highway. The old Langen parcel comprises a little over 7 acres of property. It's in a very logical location for development such as this. It's spread in between a lot of commercial uses. There's a good transition from Northwestern Highway down south into the overall development with open space, the golf course. So there's an ideal location for what we're proposing. You zoom in on the site a little bit, get a little bit more specific. The site is surrounded by Greening Street on the west, Highland Street on the east, and then there's 2 roads that kind of bifurcate right through the middle, Mulferton and Rexwood. Now, Mulferton and Rexwood a portion of those streets will have to be vacated. And then Luden Street, which is, you really can't see it. So Luden Street is right on the south side. This laser pointer doesn't work on the screen. Luden Street is right on the south side of our property. Highland Street is a smaller, partially paved road that services a handful of residential lots below us and then dead ends. Greening Street doesn't quite go all the way down the west side of our property. It stops just north. As you can see, there's an absence of any sort of circulation south of our site. And I know historically there was a PUD kind of overlaid on this entire site. The goal is get some goals with some east-west connections through. The opportunity exists for a good gateway project to come in, provide some circulation through our property to the south, and that's what we're going to propose to you. It's a challenging site from a zoning perspective. You have 4 different zoning qualifications on the site, and they're all different. They all propose different challenges, different design criteria, and candidly propose a very difficult situation to come up with a positive solution how to develop this entire site. Now, as they alluded to, the site, all of the underlying zoning, none of them allow for the use of multifamily. However, you can see on the right, the future land use plan, about 2/3 of the property is allocated in the future land use plan for a multifamily use, with the northern portion of it being non-center type business. So trying to come up with a solution, we feel what we've prepared is a great solution to the challenges of developing this site. And here's the layout plan for you. So I won't get too much into the buildings right now because Jennifer will kind of touch on those, but there's two different buildings that we're proposing. The northern building is going to be a 4-story wrap. It's going to focus on the frontage on Northwestern Highway. The southern building is going to be a 3-story walk-up building transitioning down. So you're going to have your taller building up to the north, and as you move down south into the site, transitioning to the open space, you're going to have less density and smaller building in the rear. The northern building is 250 units. They range from 1 to 3 bedrooms, high quality architectural features, and several amenities that we'll get into in a little bit. 3 different courtyards in the building. One of the courtyards can have a swimming pool. Inside, you're going to have a high-end fitness center, leasing center, and a bunch of other amenities that will cater to the demographic we're going for. The southern building they're not townhome. It's a flats building. It's a 3-story walk-up. It consists of 66 units. It consists of covered garages, surface parking as well associated with it. And then the southern building doesn't have any amenities in it. It's solely residential, but they will have full use of all the amenity packages in the northern building. And then finally, there's a dog park proposed along Greening Street all the way down at the kind of the southwest corner of the property. So just to kind of touch on parking a little bit, we know that we're under what the required parking is. There's 600 and some odd spaces required. We're at 255, and it's kind of allocated the way you see on the screen here. 416 spaces in the 4-story parking structure will take up the majority of those spaces. The southern building, there are 200 garage spaces. Those are covered garages, 23 more spaces. The surface parking in between the two buildings accommodates 71 spaces. And then we're proposing parallel parking along Greening Street that'll accommodate the additional 23 spaces. Now, I just wanted to touch on it. Out of 316 units that we're proposing here, 155 of them, almost half, are 1-bedroom units. If we met the ordinance, the code requirements is 2 spaces per unit. Maybe a few of these 1-bedroom spaces or 1-bedroom units will be occupied by married couples or some engaged couples, whatever. But you're still, majority of these, a large majority of these are going to be 1 tenant, 1 car, maybe not even a car. A lot of these, the demographics we're going after, they're going to use rideshare programs, bikes. They're going to work remotely. I don't get that. I couldn't imagine living without a car, but a lot of these people don't want the debt. They don't want a car. So we feel that where we are with parking is ample for the product that we're providing. So development benefits. It's a high-class building. We'll get into some of the quality of construction and the architecture. It's a high-class building. It's from a residential perspective, it's an apartment building, but it's not your standard apartment building. These aren't garden-style apartments. These are high-end lofts that are going to be high quality and be very impressive, and everyone is going to be very happy with the end result. It's an urban infill development. It offers a logical transition. It provides a core residential district with density that can benefit all of the adjacent commercial applications around here. And I know 316 units, that's a good amount of people coming right into this area. There are some local businesses that are suffering. The quality of the people coming in here are going to enhance that. They're going to utilize that. They're going to want to utilize that. It was kind of the core tone of the Giffords letter. I understand everybody, we all know that we're asking for an aggressive density on this site, significantly higher than what the ordinance allows. However, we are very comfortable telling you that based on this type of development, infill development, that we're very comfortable with the density we're providing. And candidly, the density is required. We are targeting high-end, high-income bracket young professionals, millennials. It's a demographic that really isn't targeted here. These individuals aren't going to rent your standard garden-style apartments. So what we need to do and what we propose to do is an amenity package, a lifestyle for them. It's a hell of a lot more than just granite countertops in their kitchens. It's high-end efficiency amenities. It's all the amenity packages I kind of referenced. It's a walk community, so they can walk out their door and within 5 minutes they can get their $17 cup of coffee at Starbucks. It's a lifestyle, and it's kind of, I don't want to say if you build it they will come, but it's the way these developments, when they are successful, you look at any of the similar developments in the year within Southeast Michigan. When these things are done, approved, and they're operational, they're extremely highly successful. So we are very comfortable saying that the density we're going for right now is something that we need. Candidly, with the amenity packages, the quality of the architecture, and everything that we're proposing to you all right now, we need that density to justify the development. We're comfortable with the height, comfortable with the size, and if we want to envision this the way we think it can be a successful project, that density is right in line with what would be a successful job.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Commissioner Schwartz.
Typically, when we get these, all we can do tonight is set for public
Right.
hearing. So typically, we take a couple minutes and we give a little bit of feedback. If there's things commissioners want the applicant to address, then I don't know why we're sitting here listening to the whole presentation. We can't do anything tonight except set for public hearing. They're going to have to do all this next month. So, if commissioners have feedback, things, information to bring back, or propose changes for them to evaluate, we should be doing that. I don't see why we're sitting here doing all this, because everything he said, he's going to have to say next month. And whatever the architect's going to say, whatever the family's going to say, we're going to have to say next month. So,
What's the feeling among the commission? Do you want to?
I agree. I'm here. Because if I remember, we
Do we
talked
wanna
about
continue
5
or
years ago, I guess I can remember what I
ask
said next
questions?
week, right, next month.
Well, certainly, prior to setting a public hearing, I'd like, generally, and I would like it from not only from the applicant, but also from the city, I'd like an overview. The issues of bed counts and room sizes, whatever, I think that's kind of deep in the weeds for prior to a public hearing. I'd like to have a higher level perspective presentation on what we're going to see. More brief, and then if the proponents, as a courtesy to proponents, they're here with their people here tonight. Certainly I think we should hear them out, but also let them know that all this detail we're going to hear at the public hearing. Please just hit on the high points, things that we need to think about. Obviously, we know density is always an issue, height's always an issue, so we're very much aware of that. We always have to factor that in. So I'm okay with kind of an overview, not only on their part,
keep it brief,
but on our part as well.
Right.
Yeah, I can just give a quick kind of overview of the buildings. As John mentioned, they are a wrap style. The front building is a wrap style, which means the residential units, which are shown in the yellow color, are wrapped around courtyards and wrapped around a parking deck. This building is the front door to the development, so our amenities and leasing office will be located in the pinkish reddish hatch there on the corner of Northwestern Highway and Greening. And then there will be like I mentioned, the 2 courtyards and also a smaller courtyard that opens to the west towards Greening Street. There was a lot of factors considered when designing the elevations. The biggest one, we wanted to create something that had that residential feel. So we used a lot of pitched roofs and change in materials. So to avoid that kind of block wall or kind of a long elevation along the street front. The parking garage is only visible minimally on two sides, but we took the care to design that, as you can see in the two elevations on the screen, in the same character as the building, so that it kind of reads as a cohesive development. The material palette, like John mentioned, high quality materials, several types of masonry, some cementitious panels, and even some sort of wood tone look products to kind of bring that warmth and residential feel that I mentioned. The southern building is a 3-story that provides a nice transition to the residential neighborhood. It will have tuck under garages at the first floor and units above. The elevations are in a similar character with the pitched roofs, similar material palette. As you can see, there are garages located at the first floor, which is convenient for residents and also keeps a lot of parking out of view from the public. So the same material palette, as I mentioned, masonry, cementitious panel, and some sort of wood tone. And then just we provided some representative graphics of the amenities that John spoke about. So high quality amenities, both inside, fitness center, gaming areas, but also that translates to the exterior in those courtyard spaces, which with the pools and fire pit areas, gathering spaces as well. Here's a rendering from the Northwestern Highway side. You can really see kind of those roof elements that I spoke about, how they break down that long elevation and provide kind of a relief as you go down the street. And then sort of a view, our entrance will be around the corner on Greening, and we want to create a really inviting pedestrian plaza that will spill out into the upgraded streetscape that we will be providing on Greening Street. Ooh,
So I guess, yeah, we're here to answer any questions that you would have, but I know that the action tonight is simply just recommending public hearing next month, but we have your ears. I would love to hear any comments, anything, any pluses, minuses, anything that you have on the site. We'd like to hear it all.
Commissioner Varga?
Yeah, just a few questions. I know this has been before us before. Has the density increased?
It has not.
It has not? Okay. I think the renderings and the use of materials is good and important. That's something I think City Council would like to see as you move past the public hearing. So that's very good to see. Has the height remained consistent or did it come down?
It's remained consistent. I will say, literally, we met with your staff about 2 weeks before the world shut down, March of 2019. It was kind of funny. We were like, I didn't know if we were like in this, like, do we need to shake hands? Can we shake hands? It was, and then everything just crashed to a halt. Yeah. At that time, we had a different building. It was higher. It was more dense. Yeah. The feedback was it's too high, it's too dense. And we got some other feedback that we, have been manipulated into the layout that we have now. So, but what you see here is exactly very similar to, as far as height and density, what you saw with the qualifications presentation.
Okay. And I probably jumped in halfway through your development and didn't see it in 2019. Has Humphreys always been the architect or did you change?
They have.
Okay. I would just recommend too, as you move forward, to maybe go back and take a look at some of the commentary from City Council on their concerns over density and PUDs. I do believe, on Northwestern Highway, this is a completely different, point of view versus some of those PUDs previously, but density is always a huge concern. I think really also if you bring some information, just like justifying a development like this in a corridor like this and where it's worked for similar areas within our region would be really beneficial. Specific examples for council and maybe even for the public hearing. But thank you for being ready today. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Questions? Commissioner Berkner?
The council kind of made it clear to us that they're concerned about density. We actually have a group of the planning commissioners are going to be meeting with a group of the council to discuss things like density. It's been by observing this area for a little bit of a time, business is not going to do well at that corner. Residential would probably do better. because people are whizzing down Northwestern Highway, they're not stopping to go to businesses along the way. So that's why I'm in favor of residential being there, and multi-use is part of what the future land use is talking about. I mean, I do have my concerns about density and adequate parking for this facility. It seems that this is the second project right across the street from each other that's talking about very high, very dense. And to tell you the truth, even if it gets past us, I don't know that it'll get past the council. But we'll find out later when we start meeting with the council in smaller groups. I mean, I like your concept. I think it's nice. I think it does fit well in there. It's been it's not blighted, but it's been like an empty area for many, many years. You're going to take out the place I buy my flowers, but, you know, I understand that things like that happen. But yeah, those density seems to be the biggest problem, and it seems to be the council's kind of thorn in their side. So I just let you know that. But overall, I think it's a nice concept. I just thing I really can't figure out is if you got enough parking for all those folks you want to put in there. Yeah, but I do believe that multi-family would fit there very well, because business won't do well there because everything that's gone in nearby has just hasn't done anything because people just drive right past it. But,
I guess I'd second the thoughts on density. I'm also really concerned about the parking aspect of it. The thought of residents not having a car, I can't envision that. I mean, maybe one or two, but you really need a car in that area. Riding your bike around that area and walking can be taking your life into your own hands. I mean, just even to go up to the West Bloomfield where the restaurants are, and I know I wouldn't want to walk or bike in through that roundabout area myself. I'd get in a car to do it. So I think parking is another major issue. I can't see how this could go in without the adequate parking. But again, the density is there as well. So lowering the density would get rid of the parking issue, so. Commissioner Orr?
Thank you. Piggybacking on the parking, I think I've been on the commission a while, and I think this is the very first time that anybody's said, well, parking on the street is where we're going to pick up 25. That you can't count our streets we pave for. I understand you're probably going to pave it, but it's going to be a city street. Unless you're going to move into your easement or something and park along there, but I don't think you can use city street parking as part of your calculations. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Bertner?
no, I have a question for Mr. Tangeri. There's a hotel right nearby this place.
Right next.
Sure.
It's a Holiday Inn.
Is it at the Hampton Inn? Isn't it the Hampton Inn, Norfolk?
There's both. There's a Hampton Inn on the north side of Northwestern, and there's a Holiday Inn on the south side, a few hundred yards east of our site.
Right. How tall is that building? Is that a 4-story?
I think, yeah.
It's not a 3-story.
Yeah, I think it's 4. I'm pretty
They are
sure it's 4
4
stories, yeah.
And I know in the West Bloomfield side across the street, it's a 4 or 5-story building.
Yeah. The height limit along Northwestern Highway here is 50 feet because it's B3 zoning, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fargo?
That would probably be beneficial as well if you should just give comparable heights of the other buildings around it. That would support your efforts as well, I think, with the council. Thank you. Can I move?
Yeah.
I move that PUD Plan Number 4, 2021, submitted on October 18th, 2021 by Farmington Hills Lofts LLC, be set for public hearing by Planning Commission on December 16th, 2021.
Support. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
We're not done yet.
Discussion?
We are.
No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll see you next month.
Who supported that? Thank you. Jennifer? Architect? Can I get your name if you want to come?
Okay, we are on to item 5, approval of minutes. Okay, motion by Commissioner Conigan,
Second.
second by Commissioner Turner. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Public comment? Is there anyone from the public who would wish to comment?
Okay, not.
No?
Thank you.
Okay. We're on to items.
I think you got some.
Oh, we do? If you could give your name and the street for the record, please.
My name is Nick Donofrio. I'm here representing Grand Saqua Acquisition. 28470 13 Mile Road, Suite 220. We are in favor of the presentation that was made tonight. We have a lot of the property in this area. It'll have a big effect on our property. We support the ideas and the visions that Farmington Lofts presented here tonight. The plans presented tonight will enhance the housing quality in this area, substantially enhance the housing quality in this area, and will benefit the health of the overall community, again, in this area. The Farmington Lofts proposal will stop the urban decay that are in the woods that act as a backdrop to the stores. When you go back into those areas, the upgrades that they're presenting both to the utilities and to the roads are just, that'll be amazing to what you currently have back there. We're very happy with what they're presenting. I'll be back again next month. Not say the same thing, but I will be back next month and the following month and thereafter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Good evening, Commission members. My name is Tom Langen, and I am here as the property owner, and so is my mother, Ruth. Could you stand up, Mom? No, I mean, stand up. Come on. I'm kidding. And my brother, Michael, who owns Norwest Lanes, the business. And I will not be here next month because it's the day before my son's getting married. So I thought I'd make a couple of comments tonight, just to let you know that we have met with a lot of people over the years that have been interested in this property. We are committed to the developers, and I believe they are committed to the community. I've been privileged to see some of their developments in other communities and literally across the country. And these folks are serious. They're going to do a wonderful project for the city here. We've been here for 4 generations. My children and Mike's children have lived at Norwest, and I have had many happy memories there. We've spent lifetimes there, and we've loved it. It's our community. But these folks, I think, can move things to the next level. And I wouldn't use the term urban decay, but I do believe that this project has the possibility of creating the kind of gateway here in Farmington Hills that will inspire people to move in and then move up in this community to other homes and other housing in the community. And that's the key, ultimately, to preserving all of our communities for the future. So I wish the developers the best of luck with you folks. Some of this stuff is very new. I thought I knew a fair amount about real estate, but their concept and the density that they're proposing is actually ultimately a benefit. So I hope you'll give it serious consideration. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, commissioner comments. Guess I'll start real quick. Duke, best of luck. It's been a pleasure serving with you. Enjoy the sun over the next few months, and hopefully we'll see you back here.
Thank you. A couple people I would like to thank, and first off, for doing a great job. Cheryl, Tom, our consultants, and our staff. I think that it's been a real pleasure to serve on this commission. Everything has been handed to us and makes it real easy. Thank you very much.
Great. And then I guess the other thing, Eric, if we can see if what's going on with the audio for next time.
Yeah, you know.
Considering they just upgraded this, it's a lot worse than it was.
Funny thing is, they were running some testing on it this morning. Yeah, here we are. It's not working very well. So
Yep.
Yeah, we'll let them know.
Okay. Commissioner Turner?
Pass.
No? Commissioner Brickner?
Well, I would like to say goodbye to Duke. It's been a pleasure serving with you over all these years, and you've always had very interesting and very poignant comments to make, and I've always enjoyed listening to you, and you've changed my mind on a few things over the years. But yeah, believe it or not. But I'll miss you being there because you are so astute at going through these plans and making very pointed comments that I think the whole community does appreciate. Congratulations and have a nice retirement.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Duke, we're going to miss you, and thank you for your service. You've been a great public servant to the community for many, many years, so we'll miss you.
Hearing it from you guys, public servants to boot, so thank you.
Commissioner Traffitt?
Now I'm really the oldest person up here. No doubt
No,
about it.
Bob's got me beat.
Does he?
Yep.
Anyway, we'll miss you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burke?
Thanks, Duke. It's been short, but I appreciate all your service to the city. It's really impressive, and I'll work on beating you in like another 17 years.
Please try.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? Yay. Commissioner Traffitt and Commissioner Brickner with support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
When is our next meeting?
16th, right?
Yep. Yes, December 16th. Yeah. Yes.
December 16th?
That's correct, yep.
There are some cookies over there. I see that
Oh, cookie.
Yes.